Hey, how's everybody doing? Once again, it's Brian here, coming to give you another edition of whatever I like to talk about in the day. I want to revisit a topic that I've already talked about, which was the case of the Alabama players Cam Robinson and Lawrence Hootie Jones being having their charges dropped by District Attorney Jerry Jones. There's been a lot of backlash toward Alabama on this in the media and the government, and people just kind of talking. Of course, there's talks of corruption. There's talks of, uh, you know, the system not being fair, about athletes being privileged, and about Nick Saban, and about Alabama, and about whether or not we're enabling football players. And once again, as I continue to do research, which I realize most media outlets haven't done apparently, only so few have, and I found way more information than the average person in the public knows right now because they just aren't looking things up. So, one thing I want to talk about first is District Attorney Jerry Jones. And I'm looking at notes here, so if you see me look down, I have actually written some things down, some sources, and I'll probably put some links up as I talk about it. But District Attorney Jerry Jones is known for in quotes here, a reputation for a light touch with non-violent criminals and an iron fist with violent ones, end quote. So he's known, and I think he's just been elected for the fifth straight time as district attorney. He's been there for a long time. He's known for being lenient on crimes that he thinks are not as not as big. The more violent crimes, like for instance, in domestic violence, he's more known to like bring a hammer down on criminals. But in cases where it's something like a small offense, he tends to try to not give big punishments. And whether or not you're okay with that, that's up to you. But that's just to say that that's evidence pointing toward the fact that this is not necessarily um, him showing favoritism to football players as people want to construe it. And I'll put a link up for that. I'll probably do it once I finish the video. Um, Also, the sergeant who arrested Sergeant Tommy Croson, um, he said he had probable cause to, come up to the car. And I tend to probably agree because it was parked illegally after hours in the park. And he said he smelled marijuana. I mean, okay, so you got to come up to the car. Um, but what most news and media outlets are leaving out intentionally, I believe, just to vilify Alabama so they can get some clicks on their articles and that they can make some money through advertisers, is that there were two other people in the car, and their names were, I have them here, Jaquez Splund and Stephen Jones. They were released by the officers on the scene after questioning, but no one's bringing that up. It's kind of fishy, right? And, furthermore, they too are former Louisiana high school, prep football stars. They played sports, um, and that's really interesting. They didn't go to Alabama. The other two in the car were also Louisiana prep high school football stars who did go to Alabama. So it's funny because people want to bring up conspiracy and say, "Well, look, football players are getting off. It's Alabama." Well, if anything, if there was conspiracy, it would probably lean more so toward the fact that the guys who played in Louisiana and didn't go to Alabama were the ones who got released and got off on their case, and the ones who went to Alabama were the ones who ended up getting almost prosecuted. So if there's any conspiracy talk going on here, that would be the one that we should focus on, not on Alabama players being not prosecuted. So you have that, uh, and I also have an article with their names in there. I have a couple of them actually. Um, those two were supposed to be arraigned, but nothing happened. It says that they were supposed to be arraigned on a Thursday a few weeks after it happened, but it never happened with them. So that's kind of weird too. I didn't get any more information on that, so I wonder what's going on there. Um, Also, here's an important part I think that people are forgetting about. They said they should have been prosecuted. You found marijuana, you found a gun. What else could you ask for? Well, and I looked this up. The district attorney, not Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, the guy who decided not to prosecute, he states that the state of Louisiana requires that it is a proven relationship or relation between firearm possession and a drug offense. Um, and so that case itself, let me see, I looked it up. I'm going to actually read it to you from the website. Here it is. I have a writ. I'll probably put the link in here too. State of Louisiana versus Dean P. Blanchard. And I'm going to read you actually the what it says. We granted this writ to determine whether LARS 1495, which is the bill, which prohibits a person from possessing a firearm while possessing a controlled dangerous substance. So it prohibits, it doesn't allow a person to possess a firearm while possessing drugs. They're trying to see if it can be that particular law can be applied to criminalize the constructive possession of a firearm by one who also possesses marijuana. So they're trying to see if it works both ways. And they said, after reviewing the record and the applicable law, we find that constructive possession is sufficient to constitute possession under the statute. However, if constructive possession of the firearm is proven, the state must also show a nexus between the firearm and the drugs in order to prove a violation under the statute. Now that's important, and you may wonder, why is that important? Jerry Jones himself, the DA, says because there were 4 people in the car, they could not necessarily prove who had the possession of the drugs. You understand why that's significant? Because in order for them to criminalize you having the possession of a firearm, which is not criminal in itself, in order for them to criminalize you having possession of a firearm, they must have a connection between you having the drugs and you having a firearm. But there was no connection because they couldn't say Cam Robinson or Lawrence Hootie Jones had the marijuana. It could have easily been Jaquez Splund, and it could have easily been Stephen Jones, as well as it could have been Lawrence Hootie Jones or Cam Robinson, but they don't know. That's also why Jerry Jones kept saying there was not enough evidence to prosecute the case. And see, people keep talking about, him saying the main reason was that he didn't want to, ruin these young men's lives. And I understand it's probably not the best word to use, but also you cannot demean or denounce his words and his actions based on these good facts here proven. And I'll put the links up so you can see it and read it yourself. And finally, this is that's really really important because I'm an Alabama football fan. People could get on Nick Saban. Nick Saban doesn't punish players, and as I mentioned in the previous video, Nick Saban does punish players. You got Tony Brown, who was suspended for the whole playoffs, and he was vying against Minka Fitzpatrick for our starting nickelback position. So that's very important position that Nick Saban did not allow him to play. He sent him home from the semifinals, and he did not return. He did not play in the semifinals or the finals for Alabama's college football playoff run. Also, he suspended Bo Scarborough for 4 games last year. He suspended Geno Matthias Smith for DUI when he first got to campus. He got rid of Jonathan Taylor, as I mentioned, all these guys. He got rid of Charles Baldwin this spring, who was a guy who was competing for the starting right tackle position on the offensive line. He was first, second string. He was in that area competing, and he was a little behind, but he was competing. We got rid of a guy who was competing for that spot. And so people act like Nick Saban doesn't do that, but that's his discipline. Nick Saban will punish those who he feels necessary, and the discipline he used for these guys, he already had them do 26 hours of ride-alongs with the Northport Police Department. He's already had them go through gun education, which they had to continually do. He also has them going to outpatient therapy at Bradford, which is a very well-known and established outpatient center here in Alabama. And they're doing that for the whole summer. They've already been going already, and they're doing it for the whole summer as well. And there's some other things also. I'll give you a link to the actual picture. Someone took a picture of the punishment that's outlined. I'll send that to you too. And so it's really interesting that in spite of all these facts, that people are still so outraged and saying, oh, it's conspiracy, football players are getting treatment. And it's well, actually, when you look at it, there's way more to the story than we're letting on. The media just wants to find a way to vilify Alabama and get some clicks and, basically cause a stir so conversation can occur. But, that's the society we live in. And yeah, thank you for listening once again to part 2 of my rant on Alabama players getting the charges dropped. I love talking about this. Please leave a comment on the video and subscribe if you like. I talk sports, I talk politics, I talk religion, philosophy. It's just my thing. Thank you for listening.